record. I'm gonna go grab me a drink. I'm empty, and I'll be right back, and then we can start.
All right, sweet. So as you can tell, it was kind of chaotic. There's no like real.
It's all good.
Yeah,
It's all
it's
good.
just a fun time. I was talking to Mike the other day,
Yeah.
and I was like, it's kind of interesting. He's like, "What's that?" I said, "All my friends, we all get along, we all hang out, we all like each other, but I am diametrically opposed politically to every single one of them."
Yeah, but even when you say that, me and you have found common ground.
Yeah, no, for sure. We had definitely found common ground. I just, again, I find it like I definitely identify as a liberal, right?
Oh
You
yeah,
do not.
absolutely. Absolutely. You're a lot of your ideas embolden that the new Democratic Party, not a Kennedy Democrat.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's interesting that like all my friends I'm hanging out with are like libertarians, conservatives. That's everyone I hang out with. But it's just I was talking to Mike about it. He was laughing. He was like, "Seriously?" I'm like, "Dude, yeah. Everybody I talk to that's not my wife, like conservative, libertarian. It's crazy. It's kind of funny, you know?"
Yeah. No, bro, I grew up in San Francisco, so don't think that I don't have liberal friends.
Right.
You know, I mean, we absolutely do not agree politically on things, but
Right.
not actually, I shouldn't say. There's a lot of them. My best friend I grew up with, I'm a Republican and a Cowboys fan. He's a Steelers and a Democrat, but he calls himself a conservative Democrat and voted for Trump.
Okay.
So, but I don't understand the conservative Democrat thing, but
I don't either. That sounds like an oxymoron. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I can see a
me.
fiscal Democrat. Like it would make more sense if he was conservative fiscally, so he would call himself like a fiscal Democrat. I've heard that term. I've never heard the term conservative Democrat. That sounds
right.
That sounds like someone who doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I often tell people I'm a conservative, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm not a card carrying Republican. I was last year, but
right.
You know, they're like used car salesmen. They want money for every time, every time throwing a fight. Yeah, I'm just, I'm not made of cash, so you're not getting money from me. But
Right.
And I think Neil is, and I've come to the conclusion that I would always call myself a conservative, but it's apparently Neil explained to me a couple episodes back that I'm more libertarian with conservative leanings.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what? A lot of the difference between a libertarian and a conservative is foreign policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is. That's why I don't really align with Rand Paul per se. I don't dislike the guy, but
I would agree with you in years past, but going forward now more. What I've noticed the difference between a libertarian and a conservative party, the current conservative party, isn't necessarily the foreign policy. It's the amount of government involvement. Because what I've noticed and what I found interesting is that like libertarians and anti-fascists, right? They're all for they both agree they want no government in anything.
Yeah.
Right? They want very limited government. It's just they completely differ on that very small government. Conservatives now, the new conservatives want government, obviously, because that's their job, and they want you to give them money and pay for shit. There's just a difference on what should be paid for between conservatives and Democrats, right? And there might be a varying degree of how much involvement when it comes to the government, but they do want more government than say a libertarian, because a mainstream libertarian wants the absolute minimum government you need, and so would Antifa at the same level. They just, again, when it comes to that very small government, they are diametrically opposed to what that government would do.
All right, before we get too deep in here, let's go live, do our introduction, and then we can continue our bullshit and eventually maybe get to our topic. Let me transition over to. Why did that not work?
I'm about to keep the glasses. I'm liking how I look with the glasses on. This is dope.
You can wear the glasses.
Oh, right, yeah, I'm liking this.
Live.
This will be my new thing now.
We are live. Neil, if you want to take off with the intro.
All right. Welcome again to another episode of PolitiTalks. Joining me as usual is Cryo or Brian, and today's special guest, my good friend Lou. Say hi.
Or Samsung.
Samsung.
That's cameras
Yeah.
labeled.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be just kind of bullshitting, talking about current events. Before we started, we were talking about the difference between conservatives and libertarians and how libertarians are.
Our viewers can hear that. I have it set so even during the coming soon or whatever the hell it is, the title.
Oh, they can hear us. Oh,
yeah,
nice.
they can hear our
that.
bullshit.
Sweet. That's awesome. All right. But yeah, on to the current events portion of it, because we were talking also at the very, very beginning about the Mar-a-Lago raid and whether or not it's illegal. And Lou, you were mentioning about the National Archive, how everything should go to the National Archive, right? And the National Archives did request all the documents from Trump, and he did give over like 26 boxes. But
Something like
apparently that was not enough.
13,000 documents, I think.
Yeah. But apparently he obviously still had more.
Yeah.
And then the question was, is it illegal? Ironically, it is illegal with a punishable up to 5 years in prison because of a 2018 law he signed in 2018, making changes to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which specifically stated that if you remove documents when you leave the White House, regardless of who it was, and you did not turn them over to the National Archive, you got 5 years in prison. And he did this primarily because of the Hillary thing, right? He really wanted to put Hillary in jail. He wanted to use that to put her, but prior to that, there really wasn't, like you mentioned, it really wasn't, it was illegal, but it wasn't to the point where you could go to jail. He changed that in 2018. And I'm saying it's ironic because he's the one that made the change.
Legislature or was that an executive order?
It was an executive order he signed, and it's never been undone.
So it wasn't a law put on the books by Congress.
No, but it's still a law in the books that he signed into office. He signed it into law.
Executive orders aren't technically laws. They're just how he would prefer that the laws are ran.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's still on the books. No one's
I realize what you're saying, and I do want to add to what you said because I was watching Fox this morning on my phone, of course, and and there was a lady there that said that the archives was after they went through 13 or 14,000 documents, there was some more documents within the last month. They're saying, "Hey, you still have documents we need," and both his current attorneys, swore, under oath that everything had been turned in. So with that being said, maybe a warrant was the only way to get these documents. Perhaps. But let's backtrack to what we were saying earlier. What was the pretense for the warrant, right? I mean, you got to consider, and I'm going to ignore what Trump's saying, right? Let's just ignore what Trump's saying. Mm-hmm. Everything that has all the investigations, all the media hype, pushing everything, including the Russiagate, the P tapes, leading up to this point, right? I mean, the man he was under investigation before he even won the presidency, right? And go back to Sussman trial, although he wasn't convicted of lying to the FBI. Plenty of witnesses stated, Hillary was leaking portions of that dossier, to the media. She was okay with that. The DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign had their hands in it, right? And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and you know this, Neil. So that's under oath, and so I mean, the guy's been under constant assault. So us, the public, what is our view of that Mar-a-Lago raid, regardless of that executive order? When you look, I mean, what is the pretense? What is truly the pretense? If it's just about documents for the National Archives, it may be a little bit heavy-handed. And considering how long Garland sat on it, and when they applied for that warrant, and when they went in before it actually expired. I mean, if it was that important, if those documents were that important, why did they just go right in when that warrant was signed? Again, public perception, right? The public perception of what's happening, not an executive order Trump signed and may have violated, right? Which, I mean, would it surprise you that he would violate something he said? You know,
No, I don't think it surprises anybody.
yeah,
'Cause the man is, the hypocrisy does not fall far from him, right? I think we can all agree with that as well. But when you look at context, right? So you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that because he's been, I'm guessing you're saying unfairly scrutinized since before he was president.
well, I mean,
Is that the context? Because again, I'm not arguing
somewhat,
that
yeah,
Hillary
somewhat,
Clinton.
because I mean,
I'm
if
not
you look
arguing.
at mainstream media, if you're not like you and I and the other individual here, right, the three of us who probably read a lot of our news, don't just depend on, you know, Fox
TikTok.
or ABC or CBS or NBC or CNN or you know, any of those mainstream media for our news, right? What is being pushed to the public? To those that don't go out and read and get the whole context of it, both sides of it, right?
Because I'm not arguing that Hillary Clinton wasn't doing anything bad. 100%. She is not the best person on the planet, right? I have never.
I just use that as
Right.
an example of what the man has gone through and how the public.
But I think it's
Because
important then if
part
we're
of
going
the
to go with.
issue here is the true MAGA crowd, and you know what? I'm a Republican, but Trump wasn't my first, second, third, or fourth choice during the primaries
2016.
leading up to the election, right? So, you know, I mean, it's a different subject whether I want him running again or not, right? But you have that true MAGA crowd that is up in arms over this, right?
100%.
And then you got the people who ill-informed, unknowing, ignorant to any facts, who are just eating it up. See, but nothing's come out yet, right? I mean, they haven't even. The other day I was reading where this one expert said usually with this type of warrant, when you go in, there's an arrest warrant with it, and they arrest the individual right away. I mean, it's been days and he's still not arrested, right?
Well, they've been trying to arrest Trump for the longest time now.
Well, I mean, you understand what I'm saying here.
I do understand what you're saying, but it's also wrong, because although typically a search warrant does have an arrest warrant, it doesn't necessarily mean that the arrest warrant is for the person who's almost being searched. A search warrant doesn't assume guilt, right? Yeah. So you can't. So just because the search warrant was done at his house doesn't mean they're looking for something on him. They're looking for something that could be tied to his lawyer who's already in jail, or any one of his number of associates. You know.
And
it's just like pleading the fifth. Pleading the fifth doesn't make you guilty of anything. It just means you're using your fifth amendment right.
No, I mean, that's, you know, that's what he should be doing. But
he is. Well, he doesn't know how to not talk. But the reason I wanted to bring that up is because you mentioned looking at history. I do agree history is important, but if we look at history in context, have you seen the list of all of his associates who have either pled guilty or been found guilty of crimes?
Not going to, you know, ignoring subpoenas. You know, look at Navarro, Peter Navarro, right? They arrested him at the airport on two misdemeanors, not felonies, misdemeanors, and took him to federal lockup over it. You know what? They're trying to destroy Trump world. I mean, that's for sure. And we got an election coming up. You know,
Rick Gates, who was underneath Paul Manafort in his 2016 presidential campaign, pled guilty to conspiracy and lying to investigators.
Yes.
Paul Manafort, who was the chair of 2016, his 2016 campaign, was found guilty of tax fraud and bank fraud. Michael Cohen, his lawyer.
Prior to the presidency. Now, Manafort's crimes happened prior to him serving in the administration.
Right? It was in 2018.
Business deals prior to him joining administration.
And again, I'm not even saying he's connected to them. I'm just saying the people he has associated with, right? And had running his campaign or his presidency.
Associated with people that have done a little bit of wrong.
But he keeps saying that he hires the best people and that he has the smartest people.
You know how Trump is, though. He's very bombastic.
But again, I've only said two. The list is long. right?
No, it is.
The CFO was recently arrested, right? The CFO
Well, he recently
guilty.
pled guilty to tax fraud because he didn't declare the apartment, the car, and some other things that should have been included in his salary.
But that's the CFO of his company, right? The person he is heading the
Exactly,
company.
yes.
So again, I'm not saying this raid is going to make him guilty of anything, but there was a warrant which was done correctly, signed by who needed to sign it, for documents that clearly were supposed to have been turned over, were asked for, and were never turned over. So if you look at it, just this one incident,
Just from those facts, yeah.
then
But what else did they take with that warrant that they shouldn't have had to even laid their eyes on?
Well,
I mean,
the only thing that I heard of was his passports, or one of the passports.
there might have been attorney-client privilege documents there. I mean,
possible too.
really,
well, it depends on his attorney at the
gotcha.
time, because if it's attorney-client privilege to Michael Cohen, that's kind of out the window now, right?
Say that again, Neil.
Depending on what they may have looked at, what they got, and the fact that the FBI their own tape team is going through it, here's the thing. You're right. Plenty of people in his orbit that he had brought on or was associated with leading up to his presidency, during the campaign, during his administration, advisors, what have you, have been found guilty of various crimes, including lying to federal agents. There's no doubting that. But again, selective prosecution. That keeps getting brought up. Selective prosecution. Hillary Clinton. Let's go back to Clinton and her email server that she shouldn't have had, that she was using for classified documents, and those documents. Yes, someone went in and stole all those documents off her server and published those. And there's plenty of classified markings on those emails. Yet, did the FBI go arrest her? Did they search her? They didn't get the server until it was cleaned, completely wiped.
Yeah, but we're talking about the presidential order that Trump put in place. That wouldn't affect Hillary.
Correct, because everything
she's never been a president.
Well, she's not a president, but she still shouldn't have had classified documents on
that's true.
Unsecured private server. I'm just saying it's selective of how both the media and the FBI are going after Trump here. And I'm not saying he didn't do anything wrong. I'm not trying to justify anything he may have done wrong. What I'm saying is the way they go after this man in his orbit isn't how they go after anyone else.
It's not being served equally.
I think that's, again, back to the public perception. The public's not that stupid to see that this man, anything he does, I mean, if he throws a piece of trash into the gutter, someone's going to catch that. You know what I mean? And it's because of who he is. It's because he's, like you said, bombastic, because everything's the greatest. Everything. He wasn't the best president ever. He wasn't the greatest ever. He didn't, was I happy with his policies? Yes. Do I wish he didn't get butt hurt and lash out and tweet and all that? Absolutely. You have to be diplomatic. You have to, in that office, you have to be presidential. Even if you are an outsider.
I do want to say real quick, Lou, thank you for spouting a democratic and liberal point of view, that law is not done equally, right? That is one of the tenements of defund the police, right? Is that justice is not served equally. There are people that are above the law and people that get away from the law, and that it should be done equally to everybody. And so thank you for.
I don't think we've ever disagreed on that, Neil.
No, we haven't. But I just again, it's fun to see things that people are arguing about.
There's a difference between the elite, the rich, right, and us normal folks, and
Trump was part of
incarceration and what have you, and that's a different subject. And if you want to talk about that someday, go ahead and invite me, and we can go back and forth over that. But we all know that those that can afford attorneys, the best, will find a way to not pay for the same crime as someone who can't afford that attorney, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look at the county we live in, Neil. in the criminal justice system, our district attorney's office,
Mhm,
right? Of all the criminal cases they have, 75% are pled out.
mhm.
The public defender and the district attorneys come to a plea agreement. They never go to the box, to the
Do you know
jury,
why?
right?
Do you know
Of
why?
the 25% that don't get pled out, the DA only wins half of those.
Yeah,
So
but do you
their
know why they
success
get
rate
pled
is
out?
truly only 12.5%.
Do you know why they get pled out?
Well, yeah, because they overload the crimes. I
They
mean,
they
Neil,
overload the staff. There's no way they could take them out of court. There's not enough time on the day. And
well,
it's illegal.
that's true too. But they'll charge you with everything under the sun, and then come down to, I mean, you're guilty. If you're not guilty, you're not going to plead guilty,
Yes, you
right?
are. Do you? Okay, so for another day, because you're right, this will be the rest of the day. We will have a talk on criminal justice and criminal justice reform because I would
Had that on the
love
docket for a while.
to send you the documentary that
And
shows
And
how
I mean,
public
quite frankly, you know,
public
I
defenders
I agree.
regularly push their clients to plead, even doing thing wrong. They
Yeah,
and the reason they regularly push them to play out is because they also are overloaded. There's not enough time in the day to get that done.
no, no, no. And in other states, they don't, like some of the smaller states, they don't, the towns don't have public defender's office. The lawyers in that area have to volunteer time to act as a public defender.
Yeah, but that's to their benefit too, because they get to write it off
Yeah,
as pro
no.
bono work. So it's a tax deduction for them. So that's kind of disingenuous too.
Somewhat it is, but maybe a criminal defense lawyer that has a reputation, they might be more eager not to just plea out. Don't want to be known as the guy that convinced his client to plea out and actually fight for him, in those situations. But again, that's a different subject. When you guys are ready for that to be a topic, because hey, you know what, Neil? 21 years ago was the last time I got in trouble, buddy. So I've been there.
Mhm.
I know.
Oh yeah, no, we can definitely have this next week. That'd be awesome to talk about criminal justice reform because it can go on forever.
But back to Mar-a-Lago.
Yes.
It's a wait and see. But
It is.
the way things are being pushed or leaked or just tidbits, I'm surprised Adam Schiff isn't out there saying, oh, he had the latest plans to the nuclear submarine. I know this for a fact, and that's nothing there, right? A nothing burger on that. But
wasn't Adam
really,
Schiff the one going after Clinton?
Huh?
Wasn't Adam Schiff the one going after Clinton?
Schiff wasn't going after Clinton.
Who was
Schiff
the one that went after Clinton in the 90s?
Oh, you
know
might
what
be
I'm
right there. Schiff was the one. He's definitely, during the leading up to the impeachment, during the whole Mueller probe, he was claimed to have seen documents about, Trump was guilty, this and that, and leaking little things that made Trump look guilty as hell. But in the end, it was a whole lot of nothing. But I mean, not a whole lot of nothing criminal, right? But
I mean, he was still impeached. But
for him, for Trump himself, but my point is, the bad optics of it. The bad optics of it is the economy, gas prices, all these other things that were negative for Democrats holding on to the House or the Senate, and all of a sudden now you got this raid, right? And the selling point is, look at these MAGA crazies. These Republicans are all MAGA crazies, and if you don't want them just taking every freedom you have, you can't vote for them. And I imagine we're not going to see anything from this raid till after the midterms, and the FBI and the Attorney General are going to say, well, we're within 90 days of an election, so we're just going to hold off on everything and anything.
Mm-hmm.
Which, well, you've already done it, right? But then again, they the FBI director, Comey at the time, you know, that said something about Clinton, and something was on Wiener's laptop, right? During that 90-day window. And that was a big no-no, right? So, but I just, again, the timing of it, the optics of it.
Yeah.
It's been just me and you, man. We got a third person here not saying much.
I don't really have much to say on this subject.
I was gonna say, like, going back to when you're talking about all of the history, if you take it back because you brought up Clinton, you go look at Bill Clinton and all of the bad optics and continuous negative press he received from right-wing media in the 90s leading up to Monica Lewinsky. There was more than just Monica Lewinsky that kind
Dude,
of
I was young back
overshadowed
then. I don't
everything.
remember much of
Oh,
that.
yeah. You had what was that real estate deal that they were focusing on, and but you know, it's worse now because of social media. It's worse now because of, you know, you have 500 channels. It's worse now because you have 24-hour news.
I would agree 100%, but I would also agree that it's worse now because you have someone who doesn't know how to stop talking.
Well, no, you're right. You're right. I
didn't know Zach was on.
know. He most certainly doesn't listen to his legal counsel. I'm sure of that.
Right.
You know, again, guys, I may be a Republican, and you know what? If Trump was the nominee in 2024, I'd vote for him before I'd vote Democrat. I mean, that's just because I can't, and that's not that I haven't crossed lines on a ballot before. I voted for Jerry Brown for Attorney General some years back. You know what I mean? I have voted for a Democrat because the Republican was just a whole bunch of lip service, right? Not often, but but I just couldn't do it. Today. And the problem is we don't have enough centrists on either side of the aisle. That's why nothing gets done. It's my way or the highway. So we have Democrats in control now, and you know, screw the other 48, 49%, you know, that didn't vote for us, right? We don't care what they want or what their needs are or what their concerns are, right? And we're going to cater to the fringe group, and hopefully the rest of our base is happy with us. I'm just saying. And the Republicans did almost the same damn thing. And that started back in with Obama. You know what I mean? I got a pen and a phone, right? I mean, it did. It did.
Well, a lot of that comes down or people not being centrist, and right now they're pushing a lot of states' rights over the like down in Florida. What was the other ones that were doing it, Neil? There's a couple states that were pushing back against the federal government. My brain's not working today.
Ohio.
And the media plays a big part in that too, right? You talked about Florida, and they called it a "Don't Say Gay" bill. There's nothing in that bill that says "Don't say gay." It's about children and what they're being taught, and the parents have definitely made their voices heard of what they want in schools. And I look, I don't have kids like Neil that are going to school, and what I want them to learn at home and what I want them to learn at an early age at school. So I don't have anything. I don't have a skin in that game, right? So, but the media sells it as something more extreme than it is, right? I know you guys talked about Roe versus Wade a few days back, and a few weeks back, and you know, with Roe versus Wade, I read the opinion that basically said the Supreme Court made a law when it's a legislative law. Now, if there was moderates in Congress, what they could do is they could codify abortion as a right and let the state set a limit. And as a Republican, I'd be happy with that, right? I would be happy with that, but we can't. It's either full term or, you know, Republicans are all bastards because, you know, they don't agree with us. And it's just sad. It's sad. It's a sad state of affairs.
Too, man. The Republicans are the same way, leaning towards the Democrats. It's either my way or you're bastards.
You're right. You're right. No, you're right. And that's what I'm saying. We can't bridge the gap there. There's not enough centrists anymore, not enough moderates. And, you know, and it's that way with the media. It's that way. I mean, the fact that three of us who probably, I mean, you're more libertarian, I'm more conservative, and Neil is very liberal. Yet we're not screaming and cussing at each other and calling each other names here, right? We're having
You're
a
not part of the
conversation.
Discord, so you don't see that part of it. We kind of try to keep it PG here on the channel.
Well,
But yeah, you got a
Yeah.
point. But my question I was going to bring up at the very beginning is, what do you consider the middle now? Because the problem with a two-party system, right, is when you have a two-party system, everything moves and shifts left and right depending on the moment and really the
Depending
decade
on the subject.
and the subject, but really depending on the decade and who's in power, right? And so it was really, really conservative in the 80s when you had Reagan, right? It swung more more liberal, but Reagan was a knee-jerk reaction to the 70s when it was much more liberal, right? So it went back to being conservative, and then it went back to being liberal. So where do you see the center at? Because most people, like, okay, and I'll give an example of this. I do not consider myself a far left liberal.
I wouldn't
I
either.
do understand some of the talking points by the squad, right? But I do consider myself a liberal. I would consider myself more of a centrist, but I'm also more in line with the majority of Democratic senators, right? But that's the majority of Democratic senators aren't the ones that are making the headlines. It's going to be your AOCs and I can't think of anyone else in the squad, but you know,
Well, the only one that's important is
Wesley.
AOC.
right? And again, and to be fair, like I mentioned this in the past too, I can understand her point. I do not agree with what she decides to fight on, but I can understand her point. But I don't necessarily agree with the topics, right? I do not understand the need to make transgender rights a focal point when we have a fucked up economy and people can't pay for shit. Why are we giving a shit about what people are called? We should focus more on. I'm not saying we need to shit on their rights, not give them rights. No, I'm just saying
They
that's
do
not
have
a
rights. They
focal
have all
point.
the same rights we do.
I'm just saying it's not a focal point. Why is that a focal point right now? A focal point should be our economy. A focal point should be jobs. A focal point should be pay rates, unionization. Focus on that. Don't focus on.
Doesn't AOC have a bachelor's degree in economics?
I don't know. Maybe
from
I
like
don't know.
Georgia. I whatever school she went to, she did a disservice to the rest of the graduates. She doesn't understand the economics.
But again,
you agree with the subject matter and the issues, the problems, right? You don't agree with her the
prioritization,
the way she wants to go about getting those results.
Correct.
Right?
I don't agree with the prioritization because again, the whole school thing, right? I understand people are upset with what's going on in school. I overall don't get it because school is really just designed to keep people working and keep nice workers. It's a system to keep people to shut the fuck up and do what you're told type system. I get it. I don't like it, but to just say, oh, they can't read certain books, whatever, it's a nothing issue because it's not going to solve the base issue of the school system in general. So why are we talking about bullshit issues like that? Again, you want to talk about the transgender rights. We all agree transgenders have rights. They should have rights. No one should be discriminating against them.
What rights don't they have? Can you explain that to me? What rights don't they have?
Yes, the biggest issue right now that is in the media and is being legislated has to do with sports and can transgender women participate in women's sports. There are laws and bills into place to limit that and prevent that. And again, I don't see it as an issue right now because again, in those same states, people can't afford rent.
There's an easy fix to that, Neil. You have a special category for those transgenders that want to compete.
I'd say we do away with men and women's sports and just make it a sport.
Well,
then you would just do away with women's sports.
Well, that's ultimately what more than likely would happen, but yes.
No
one's saying they can't compete.
Now we're sexist because we're going to cater and just have male sports.
No,
I don't care.
I'm not saying that. Everyone has the right because here's the thing, especially and I use powerlifting because powerlifting is by weight class, right? Powerlifting is by weight class. You lift based off your weight. I know women in a weight class that will outdo 90% of men in that same weight class because they are built different. They're just super strong, amazing athletes. So,
but physiologically, men have bigger bones, more muscle mass.
I agree.
Their muscles are built. I mean, physiologically, hey, Bo, I'm not out running, out swimming, out lifting, out boxing, out cage fighting these athletes that are training, transgendered or not, right? You know, here we go. But the media wants to sell that, right? Again, this is where the media plays a role in selling the bullshit to us, right?
And again, that's why I'm not saying we can't have these discussions, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have these discussions. I'm just saying I don't know if now is the right time. And the reason I'm saying that is because people are homeless. People can't afford rent. People can't eat. I would believe that's a bigger issue. That doesn't mean I'm less liberal. That just means my priorities are different for my liberal agenda. And that's to me.
And that's where the Democrats are starting to lose, because they're focusing on that stuff that the general population wants them to focus on.
Correct. And that's not, again, nothing's saying, no one's saying you can't have those discussions. However, given the current time where people can't eat, because AOC in like 2020 was all about unionization and increase the minimum wage. And I was 100% behind that. Yes, get behind that. Why aren't we still talking about that? Because none of it was done. And we still can't have people having a livable wage at all. And that's an issue. We need to be able to focus on that, because people can't eat, especially in California.
Well, California is expensive as fuck.
Exactly.
California now, I mean, look at what's on the ballot coming up. You got Prop 27, Prop 26 are both gaming propositions for gaming, right? And it's all about the Indian tribes, right? So 27 sells it as we're going to raise money for the homeless, to house the homeless. Well, you know what? I'm voting no on both. What are you doing with the hundreds of millions of dollars you've already spent on homelessness? Because instead you're just paying somebody that you know to go out and count the homeless.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That doesn't solve the problem, right?
Correct.
I mean, it's like what California does with its lottery money, or what it does with its gas tax. It doesn't double the $5 billion we spend on our roads. It just allows the governor to say, okay, general fund transportation money, I can use it wherever I want to give undocumented health care. Right? The lottery, same thing. I mean, we didn't add to the school budget, right?
Yeah. So I agree. When I saw the gaming one, since you brought up the gaming one specifically for California.
What is this one? I haven't heard about this one.
So they want to change. Let me bring them up so I can talk about it. Louis, go ahead and talk about it real quick while I bring it up.
Say again?
Lou, you want to
explain
it while he's
Prop 27 while I bring it up?
Well, there's a lot of ads about it, but they want to rein in, tax, regulate online gaming. Basically, by allowing the online gaming in California, it's hurting the Indian tribes, right? If people can't go to the casinos to gamble,
it's fucking dumb.
Right? They're doing it online. It's taking money away, right?
That's fucking dumb.
So they want to regulate and tax, and they're going to sell it as, well, we're going to keep an 18-year-old from gaming. How are you going to do that? I mean, Facebook's got a age limit, right? Instagram's got age limits. Kids just, I'm 21, right? So
I joined Facebook when it first came up, and I wasn't of age yet.
So it's 26 and 27 are specific to sports betting and racetracks. 26 is to allow it for in person on tribal casinos, and 27 is to allow it online. Again, through tribal casinos.
Yeah. Online, they want to remove it from people that aren't Indians. They want to remove the ability to run
specifically tribal. No, it has to be through tribal gaming, because the only way it's legal in California is through tribal gaming.
That's
fucking dumb.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's just a way of controlling where people are putting their money. Yeah. I mean, just taking other options away from gamblers. I mean, I think we got too many damn casinos as it is. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I want to legalize gambling in general in California and just make gambling legal, but I also want to legalize prostitution and drugs, but that's just me.
Well, that's yeah. We can argue about that another day.
Why? Freedom, right?
You're not for prostitution or drugs?
Oh, I know. Or drugs, or legalization of drugs. But then again, I've been clean and sober for 19 and a half years.
Well,
So you
why
know,
are you against? Why are you against drugs? I mean, you don't have to use them.
No, but go ahead and legalize it and see how many people are out committing crimes to get it. You know,
Well,
but they only have to
regulate
register
it
they
like
have it now.
alcohol.
and you
Regulate
know
it just like alcohol.
they legalized marijuana in California, and guess what? The illegal marijuana sales, illegal growing, all that is even larger than it was before they legalized it.
That's
You can
because the
still get it
government are
for
putting a
cheaper than you
massive
can
amount
at a
of
pot
tax on
shop.
it.
Huh?
Government's put a massive amount of tax on the legal marijuana.
Yeah.
So
So
if they just let it be legal, you don't have to get it through the government, then it would be
if they're
fine.
going to legalize it, they want their tax dollars.
They
Hey,
need to
They
Yeah,
back
want
off
their
of the
tax dollars. I mean,
That's-
that's
where the
like
problem is.
legalizing moonshine in California and saying, "Oh, we're not going to tax the alcohol." You know,
they did legalize moonshine in California.
I mean,
Did they?
pot's different. Pot's different than the harder drugs, right? Than the heroin, the cocaine, the methamphetamine.
Mhm.
You know, pot's different. And I'm not a proponent of legalizing pot only because I don't know how many people tell me they're better on pot than sober and think I can get in my car and my reaction and all that's not slowed. I'm not under the influence or anything. I'm better off smoking pot. You know, that's my issue. You know, main issue is that. But with the harder drugs, no.
The issue is with the government putting their hands in it. Just make it legal. That's it.
What's your issue with prostitution? Why do you know the prostitution?
Disease. I mean, you'd have to regulate the hell out of that, bro.
Yeah,
Like Nevada does, where it's legal. You know what I mean?
Amsterdam,
Again,
Denmark. Yeah,
you know,
I watched this. I love George Carlin. You guys watch George Carlin?
yeah, wow,
Not in a long time.
yeah.
Okay. So he had a bit on prostitution. Have you seen the bit on prostitution?
I think you've told us about it every time we've had.
Not
this.
prostitution. He had one on drugs. I told you about the drugs one.
Yeah.
Because the prostitution one I thought was pretty funny because he asked two simple questions. If selling is legal and fucking is legal, how come selling fucking isn't legal? Right? It makes no sense.
Not good. Not a funny one.
It's a great one because it makes you think. Like, you can kill somebody in the military, get a medal, right? But you fuck somebody, you go to jail.
So okay, so let me throw this at you. If you legalize prostitution, is that going to stop or promote human trafficking of some sort, some way?
No.
I don't see why.
No.
Well, I mean, the sex trafficking is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. But again, speaking of Denmark, using Denmark as a great example of regulating it, taxing it, and allowing it helps keep people clean because everyone has to get tested regularly. They have to work in a safe environment. They don't have to, but the majority of them have to work in a safe environment. And if you don't want to work in a safe environment and you want to do things your own way and whatever outside, they actually have an area for that. And you can go to that area. And everyone knows that if you go to that area, hey, that's on you. It's a no holds barred thing. You can't get mad if you catch something or do some shit out there because that's the underground area, but it's completely known and still completely legal out there. But if you want to work at a brothel, if you want to work in a safe environment, you're going to be paying more in taxes, and which is going to be costing more. But it's completely up to the individual. That's on the prostitute and it's on the John to go there. Yep. So they have a very low sex trafficking. When you talk about trafficking, they don't have the trafficking issues we have in the States, and they don't have the disease issues that we have in the States. So if you use them as an example of where to start, I think it would be fine. And then you could tax the shit out of it like they do. And we could do away with some of the taxes that we have to pay because the money is made up for there.
Yeah. All right. I mean,
I think you got him, Neil.
Well, you know,
I saw the lights turn on.
I've never paid for a prostitute, but either legal or illegal. I never will. Right.
No,
so it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me.
Exactly. But people will. And so you tax it and then you lower my fucking Mellow Rouge tax, my school tax, because all the money from there goes to that tax. So now I don't have to pay that tax. And so I'll never effectively pay it because I'm never going to go get a prostitute.
But
it's like in Nevada, right? Gambling.
So where are you gonna put these legal brothels at?
Oh, that's wonderful.
Look at
I'm glad you
Illinois.
actually thought about that. There is a shit ton of nothingness down by Bakersfield, right? Because they have nothing but oil derricks and desert down there, and they
Just
have a shit ton of
put it on a
nothingness,
military base. They'll
huh?
make put it on a military base. They'll make
Right?
fucking bank.
By anywhere near any military base, down by San
So
Diego, LA.
when you say legalize it, then it's got to be in a specific area, out in the middle of the desert or in a
No,
military base,
No,
but not
no.
any town that may want to legalize it.
Any town that wants to legalize it, again, you're gonna have zoning just like you do with legalized weed, right? You can't put a pot house right next to a school. You're not gonna put a brothel next to a school. Now you might want to put it next to a college because you'll probably make a fuck ton of money there too, right? So you might want to make sure when you're
So
legalizing it
we'll
and
stick it
districting
out
it,
by UOP. I wonder how the
yeah,
homeowners over there feel about it.
as long as they have to pay property taxes, I'm sure they'll be fine.
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
We're
what they
never
feel
going to do
about it.
away with property taxes. Property tax, you're not going to make up. You're not going to make up your property tax revenue with prostitution.
Nevada did through gambling. Nevada, you don't pay hardly anything in taxes because they have gambling and prostitution. Those
Right,
two
right.
things pay the majority of all taxes in Nevada. So again, and this is how I would sell it. If I'm going to open up a brothel next to UOP, right, and I'm the mayor, I'm going to sell it to all those people saying, if you live in this area, in this zoned area, you do not pay property tax. I have a feeling people would be happy because
Well, how high are
taxes
property taxes there in California?
depends
Well,
on when you
they're
bought
by
the
Prop
house.
13. What,
Yeah.
1.1%, 1.13%?
Depending on, but it's on the value of the house when you bought it, and it goes up percentage wise year after that. But so for like right now, my property taxes are roughly $2,000 a year, or like $2,500 a year, which
Quite a
isn't
bit.
bad. But I also, when I bought my house is under $150,000, right? My house now, I got an offer on Friday. Some dude called my phone, wanted to buy a sight unseen for 4.25, right?
Why are you
So-
not selling?
Because I can't buy a home outright for the profit I would make.
Move out of California.
And do what
I don't know. Live
exactly?
off that.
I'm not gonna
Come buy a
fuck that.
house out here where like I'm looking at a house right now, and I mean the market's still pretty high. It's 150K right now on the high
Where
end.
are you at?
You
Where
can
are you
bring
at
that
again?
4.5, huh?
Where do you live again?
Ohio.
Ohio. Okay.
Yep. The city that I'm looking at is a small town that I grew up in. We're looking at a house right now for 150K. You can bring that 4.5K here to this town and buy that house outright and live on that money in that town for the next 10 years and not have to work.
Probably.
Yeah.
Then I would not be in California.
Yeah, fuck California.
Oh, whatever, dude. No. When it comes to weather, so a quick question: does it snow there?
Yes,
Yeah.
and I love it.
Cannot move there.
I love it.
I'm a bitch. I do not do snow at
I
all.
know you're a little bitch.
Does it?
Oh,
do,
you're a big bitch.
How hot does it get in the summer?
About, I don't know. It got to about 100 at one point.
Is there humidity?
Kind of, a little bit.
Fuck that. Can't do that. It's a dry heat here. Again, I don't do humidity. I don't do snow. I also don't do mood swings. If your weather has mood swings and goes from like 30 degrees in the morning
dude,
to
there was
120,
Dude, if you want to talk about mood swings, there was one day that I was at work. We went in the morning. It was snowing. Went out for our lunch break. It was 70 degrees. Came back from lunch. It was snowing again.
see,
It's fucking nuts here in Ohio.
Yeah, that's
what I'm talking
when
about.
I was stationed in the Army in Colorado. It'd be 85 degrees out, and then you'd have golf ball size hail start falling.
It's Ohio weather is nuts sometimes.
I can't fucking do it. I can't.
Hey, Neil, anything east of the Rockies is a different type of weather, bro.
I know. I've been out there, and that's why I visit. Right? I visit so I can fucking leave.
Speaking of visiting, I'm hoping that GameStop kicks off here soon.
Oh, nice.
I'm hoping it. So right now is a good time to get in, Neil. They did that
Split.
a split. So it's down. I think it was sitting at like $37.
Oh,
Friday.
nice. All right,
Just buy
check
you
it
like
out.
10 of them
Yeah.
and just hold it. I'll let you know when to sell.
All right. I'll do that on Monday then.
Yeah, it's a
Somebody
good time to
message
get it
me
right
on
now.
Monday.
And
tomorrow.
it may even go down a little bit more because I don't know if you saw Bed Bath and Beyond. They just had a massive run up. And then it crashed again. I knew when I saw Ryan Cohen, he's the CEO, or not the CEO, the chairman of the board for GameStop. I saw a couple months back that he just bought a bunch of Bed Bath and Beyond. I was like, man, I should freaking buy that. And then what
Bed
happened
Bath and
last week?
Beyond is crazy because they just reorganized, right?
Mhm.
They just reorganized and closed a bunch of non-performing stores, this and that.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, there's one here by me that closed down about 3 or 4 months ago. But
I mean, and not that that all around it's performing badly,
yeah,
but I mean they were reorganized, which it doesn't scream buy to me. Yeah, I mean the jump in price, someone with a lot of money went and bought stock and jumped it up. Yeah, I
well,
mean,
the reason it went up is because Ryan Cohen, he bought into it months ago, and then he bought a bunch of far in the future. I can't remember what they're called. I can't remember what the hell they're called. But he basically makes a bet on it, say the price is going to go up here, and if it
yeah,
hits this point, I can buy this
he's
many. I can
trading.
reach the
He's
price.
trading in a future.
Yeah, whatever the hell it's called. I can't remember what it's called. But that became it got big in the news that he had bought that months ago. It happened last week. It came into the news cycle, but they didn't say that he bought it months ago. So then a lot of people bought into it real quick. The price shot up. And then he also announced that he was going to sell. So, but the thing is, with him still being, he owns like, I think it was just over 10% in the company. And anytime so what he would be considered an insider. So anytime you're an insider and you sell your stocks, you don't get the profits. You get back your money, but all the profits go to the company.
Yeah.
So Bed Bath and Beyond just made a bunch of money off of Ryan Cohen doing that.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. He's trying to do for them what he did with GameStop. He got rid of all their debt.
So future trading, Southwest Airlines, right? They
Yeah.
only profitable airline for 26 years in a row. And that 27th year, they lost their ass. Well, they bought fuel futures and bet wrong. And they agreed to pay a higher price than what fuel was costing at the time that they had to come forth and make that payment. So future trading, there's a lot of your prices are set by futures. Yeah, I mean,
your gas prices.
depending on how much of it's bought. I mean, any commodity, any stock can be future traded. Yeah, I mean, it's hedging.
So, speaking of future trading in Southwest Airlines, Lou, I wanted to get your opinion on this. Do you believe in government bailouts for private companies?
Bailouts for private companies?
Yeah, like you remember we bailed out the auto industry, we bailed out the big banks, and the stock market crashed last time.
The correct answer is no.
How integrated in the economy? Because when I was doing my master's degree, I had to write a report on Bear Stearns. Why was Lehman Brothers allowed to fail and Bear Stearns was allowed to survive? And what the public doesn't know is what Bear Stearns had their hand in, which is trillions of dollars of derivatives. People don't know what companies do hedging themselves, interest rate swaps, all kinds of stuff. They're basically self-insuring themselves in trades, and they use companies like Bear Stearns to do it. Lehman Brothers failing didn't have as much of an impact as Bear Stearns completely failing would have.
What would have happened?
So, did I agree with the auto industry getting a bailout? Absolutely not.
So, real quick on Bear Stearns, what would have happened had they not been bailed out?
A complete failure of our banking industry.
Okay.
A complete failure of our banking industry. It wouldn't have just been like Countrywide shutting down, buddy. I mean, the biggest banks would have failed.
Okay.
Some of the biggest companies could have failed.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, fraud would have knocked us back into the Stone Age. We'd still be recovering from that.
Probably. But would that have really changed the lives of the people that are already broke?
Yes.
How?
Because more people would have been broke.
Okay. Look, but the people that are already broke.
Guys like the three of us working and buying things and spending our money on things that creates jobs, right? Mm-hmm. It takes people investing in the stock market into companies to build more or to create more jobs. It does. The government doesn't create jobs. The government creates more liability. And I work for the government, right? So
the government does create jobs.
Creates liability.
It does create jobs, though. How many people work for the government?
Yeah. And guess what? The tax dollars that we generate through our jobs do not make up for what we're paid. The taxpayer funds us.
Correct.
The government's not a job. Yes, they create jobs, but based on tax liability, it takes funding to pay for us, which is taxes. I'm not saying that society doesn't need our jobs, doesn't need to create, those jobs, doesn't need, I mean, there's certain amount of necessity for the government to deliver services to its public, right? Regardless of where in the economy that is, right? But the private sector needs to survive. And we spend money in the private sector, whether it's at the grocery store or the 2 cars I'm making payments on, or the gas station, or the retail store, or Amazon, wherever it is I'm spending money, generating more tax dollars, buying products from specific sellers. That's what keeps the economy going.
Correct.
Right? Okay. Had we had a complete collapse of the banking industry, bro, we would have been back to the Depression, man. We would have, and there would have been no, Social Security Act, great, New Deal, that would have got us out of it. And I mean, the economy is so complex. Not that either one of you don't have the brain power to understand it or have an understanding of it. The general public does not.
No. General public.
And I'm not knocking anyone here speaking of it, but generally speaking, general public is ignorant to what's really going on in the economy and how important it is. And you know what? It is our own selfish greed that allowed our economy to grow and be what it is. So do we let wholesale industries fail? No. But when we gave of that $1 trillion that we got in bailout money and gave $800 million to the auto industry, I call bullshit. Because we also gave 25% of GM to the union. And doing so. So you gave the union, the workers whose jobs were saved, 25% of the company. The American taxpayer did. And when they paid back that money, there was no interest they paid on it. And they came up about $5 billion short on the loan, and it was wiped. So and then, what GM turned around did and took out the biggest credit line ever in the auto industry, right after we saved their asses.
Yeah. I am not a fan of bailing out companies. If we want to endorse capitalism and say capitalism is the greatest thing, well, capitalism allows for natural failure of businesses that underperform. And so if your business is underperforming in the capitalist economy, then it doesn't need to be around. But I truly believe that that's the route we're going to take. Then it should be for every company. That includes banks. And we shouldn't bail any of them out.
So, yeah, and you've got a valid point, right? Yeah, I mean, you do. But you do understand when the housing crisis started. It wasn't 07. It was back during Bill Clinton.
It happened in 2000 and 2001.
No.
Oh, no, 97, right? 97, 96?
Well, yeah, 95, the Congress wouldn't pass an act, right? Wouldn't legislate an act that it was an act intended almost like the Affordable Care Act, the Affordable Housing Act, right? So what he did do,
that was Freddie Mae and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he changed the rules, the HUD rules. Well, Freddie and Fannie already had 50% of the mortgage market, and now they got into the subprime market, which made banks get involved now, and administrations on both sides of the aisle continued this and kept allowing more and more and more, right? So you know why Goldman Sachs paid a penalty on that housing crisis. It wasn't because they created it, although the public wants to blame the big banks. It's your local bank that doesn't have enough money in assets to keep loaning out money. So they're selling these loans. In order to keep selling loans, the brokers working there and the real estate agents are convincing people, just say you make another $2,000 a month. Don't worry, you'll be able to flip that.
They didn't check finances, and they started allowing ARMs. Adjusted rate mortgages is one of the biggest reasons why it failed as well. I never understood why anybody.
Goldman Sachs had an algorithm, and while working on my MBA, we did a case study on it, and it was so secretive we couldn't even email our progress to the teacher because Goldman Sachs gave us permission, but they were in negotiations with the government at the time. So basically, they had an algorithm that told them the assets were toxic, that the rating agencies had overrated these tranches, billions of dollars in mortgages. They're not rerunning the credit on these. They're assuming that the banks that bundled them together were being honest, right? And they decided to divest themselves. And they had a huge argument on their board whether they wanted to divest all their real estate holdings, and they chose to do it. And they paid a huge fine. Meanwhile, your local branches didn't pay shit. The real estate agents involved that got rich off it didn't pay shit. The brokers working at the banks are getting bonuses for doing the bullshit. They didn't face any bullshit, right? They didn't get charged with anything, you know. So I unfortunately, again, Neil, you have to look at how involved
No, I agree
an
with all of
industry
that.
is in the economy. I mean, look at our national debt.
I agree
We
with
talked
all of
about
what
this
you're
last
saying.
week, right? 90% is owned by U.S. financial institutions, government agencies, and it's within our borders, right? China does not own our debt,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So-
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Because
Now-
that's one talking point I'm tired of hearing, because it's so fucking irritating. But yeah, no, and I agree with everything you're saying. And I do understand what your point is. My point with the banking industry really boils down to when you bail them out, you tell them that because they're so involved in the entire economy, you really have given them an allowance to do whatever the fuck they want, because there's no way they can fail, and because there's no way they can fail, there's no way for them to not have to watch themselves. Now, part of the argument is that, well, they should be able to take risks to grow and make more money. The problem is when they're wrong, they're really fucking wrong, and it fucks
to
over
that point now,
poor
dear
people
Neil,
more than anybody
rules-
else.
rules have been enacted to rein that shit in.
And they've timed out, and they're starting to go in.
Rules may have been put in
Well,
place, but that doesn't mean they're being enforced.
And they've timed out. Arms are now a really big thing again. Arms are starting to see adjusted rate mortgages are starting to see a resurgence again. There was a cap and you couldn't do it when it crashed, because that was one of the big problems with this, is that you can afford your mortgage because your interest rate is 3%. Great. Now that your interest rate is 14% on that $500,000 home you bought, you can't afford your $10,000 a month mortgage payment because of a 13% interest rate. Well, you got an adjusted rate mortgage, so you only had that 3% locked in for the first 5 years. Now you're fucked. And that has started last year, saw the resurgence. I want to say it was something like 8% of all mortgages were done on an adjusted rate mortgage. That seems like a little amount, but that's
how much of a percent?
8% of all mortgages done. So if like 100 houses were bought, 8 of them had an adjusted rate mortgage.
I didn't.
That's
that
a
is just,
lot.
that is just idiotic to buy.
It's fucking stupid. That's a lot of people that are fucking themselves over, and they're sold on this idea because a lot of people don't know that you shouldn't do this. A lot of people don't know that was one of the causes that dropped the houses.
Yeah.
And then I look at, again, I told you how much I'm getting the calls for selling my home, right? 4.25. In 2006, right before it crashed, my house's value was 480. So we're damn near up to 2006 home prices in California. That's pretty fucking scary, because that's before it even crashed. The problem with it being that high was it was unsustainable for anyone living in California. Our wages have not gone up that much, so it's still unsustainable.
My good friend's an electrician, and he works for some big builders, and he said that he can see it's going to slow down. The small single-family homes are almost non-existent now. The big homes, the $1 million homes, are still selling, because if you got that kind of money, it doesn't matter, right?
Mike,
the banks are playing. The banks are playing games right now. So back to your thing. The Fed's raising rates, and usually that overnight rate that the Federal Reserve or banks loan to each other to cover that money they're loaning out, right? That overnight rate is going up, and usually mortgages are pegged to that. Credit card debt is pegged to that, right? Yeah. Car loans and stuff not necessarily pegged to that, right? But mortgage rates aren't 100%. Necessarily pegged to it, but they rise and they flow with it.
Go with it. As that goes up, so do mortgage rates. Yeah, because mortgage rates now are historic lows, which is a bullshit thing, because historic lows for mortgage rates now on a 30-rate mortgage is like 6%, which is not fucking historic lows. That's
banks have actually in the last month have started bringing those rates that they had raised up back down a little bit. It still doesn't make a damn bit of difference. My brother and sister-in-law want to buy a house to retire. My brother's going to retire he's a police officer, going to retire. They wanted to buy a house out here, and they can afford it. It's not that they can't. They're paying $3,000 a month rent where they live in the Bay Area, right? It's not that they couldn't afford any of that mortgage and put more than 20% down. It's the overpaying for a house. It's overpaying. And my sister-in-law hates interest. She does. She's already paid 15 years of mortgage on a rental they own in 6 years. You know what I mean? She paid off her car in 2.5 years. She hates paying interest, you know? So it's overpaying. So they refuse to do it. Now they're talking about just taking some money and potentially moving into the rental and redoing that house and moving into the rental, you know, because they're not going to overpay.
How much is this house that they're paying $3,000 a month?
How much is the house? That's the rent.
Yeah, how big
That's
is
their
the house?
rent?
Yes, the rent.
God damn.
It's a 3-bedroom in Daly City, right outside San Francisco.
Yeah, that's
I'm
cheap.
never moving to California.
3,000 is cheap for a 3-bedroom.
Yeah, 3-bedroom, 1 bath.
Dude,
That's not bad.
I had a full house with a full garage and a basement, 4 bedrooms, and I was paying $1,500.
So in San Jose, 3-bedroom, 1 bath, and we're talking a house built in the 1930s. 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 14 or 1,300 square foot home will rent for about 3,500 in San Jose. So yeah, $3,000 is not bad.
Here in Stockton, a 1-bedroom apartment's running $1,400 a month.
That's the not so nice areas. If you go to the nice areas, it's $1,850 or up.
Yeah.
I'm never moving back to California. I'm glad when I lived there, I was in the military and everything was paid for. Fuck that shit. I'm never going back to California. Neil, you're going to come visit me. I'm not coming to visit you.
No, you can visit. You just don't live here. It's
no,
fine.
because I don't want to pay the gas prices either.
They went down to $4.89 a gallon.
Okay.
So let's talk about gas prices, right?
All right.
Hold on. Let's first on the subject. I'm going to have to get out of here because it's getting late on my end. I got to start getting my stuff together for work tomorrow. So before we start another subject, I got to get out of here.
No. That's we need to talk about that because that has to do with people not going anywhere.
Well, you guys can continue the show. I just have to get
because when it comes to gas prices, I actually put together a list of shit when Kurt was supposed to be on here to talk about gas prices.
That was supposed to be 2 weeks ago, I think it was.
Yeah, because the gas prices thing, talking about future trading, has a lot to do with that. It also has a lot to do with greed, but it also has a lot to do with the reserve and a whole bunch of different things. But I have a whole bunch of different topics for that one. So I have like a half hour of information just on that. So yeah, we can definitely make that a show. That'll be super fun for that one. So,
I'm looking forward to the one when we talk about what was that thing I posted? All of the racist things.
Oh, systemic racism?
No. The thing I just posted yesterday about 99 things you never knew was racist. Everything's racist. It would be easier just to have a list of things that isn't racist.
We will talk about that next week for sure, because I actually looked at that, and 1, is pretty hilarious, but 2, it's pretty okay. Some of those things were pretty specific to an issue. It doesn't mean everything is. It's the one issue in the one town that they were talking about.
Doesn't matter. Still said it's racist.
Now, now if you don't agree 100% with the person calling you a racist, you're a racist.
If you say that you're not racist, you're racist.
Right?
That was on the list. If you roll your eyes, you're racist.
You're a racist.
Thank God I'm wearing sunglasses. You can't tell.
No one can see your eyes roll, and that's why you're wearing the glasses, because you don't want to be called racist on the show today.
Pretty much.
That's what it is.
Neil, you fucking racist.
The liberal.
Was I not supposed to say the F word, guys?
No, you cuss.
No,
I cuss all the time.
This is an adult show.
Yeah.
But all right, I'm gonna have to cut it out of here for me at least. You guys can continue the show.
No worries. Have a good evening.
So I will catch you guys later. Let me stop the.
Yeah, it's gonna stop because the recording is gonna stop, so it's cool.
Well, I'm stopping the stream, and then when I leave, you can start re-recording. I just stopped my stream.
All right.
So there we go.
Sounds good. I want to talk to Lou about work anyway. I want to